The maintenance tunnel smelled like oil and recycled air. Tae-young crawled through the narrow space with his toolkit strapped to his back. He had been working on the Galactic Council station for 3 years now, fixing pipes and electrical systems that kept thousands of alien species comfortable. Most of them never noticed him. To them, he was just another human doing low-level work. He reached the environmental control panel and opened it. The wiring inside looked like a mess of colored snakes. Tae-young pulled out his scanner and started checking each connection. While he worked, he hummed a song his grandmother taught him when he was little. It was an old Korean folk tune about a tiger and a rabbit. The melody echoed softly in the empty tunnel. Suddenly, the entire tunnel shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Tae-young grabbed the wall to steady himself. The lights flickered. He had been through station tremors before, but this felt different. This felt like something was coming. The air in front of him began to shimmer like heat waves on summer pavement. Tae-young backed up against the wall, his heart pounding. He had no weapon, no way to call for help in these deep maintenance tunnels. The shimmer grew brighter and brighter until he had to shield his eyes. When the light faded, a woman stood before him. At least she looked like a woman at first glance. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with skin that seemed to have tiny scales catching the tunnel lights. Her eyes were golden with vertical slits for pupils. She wore robes that looked like they cost more than Tae-young would earn in his entire lifetime. Behind her, clinging to her leg, was a small creature about the size of a large dog. It had wings folded against its back and the same golden eyes as the woman. Tae-young knew immediately what they were. Everyone in the galaxy knew about dragons. They were one of the founding species of the Galactic Council. They ruled an empire that spanned 100 worlds. They were powerful, ancient, and definitely not supposed to be in maintenance tunnels talking to human janitors. "You are Tae-young," the woman said. Her voice was not a question. It was a statement of fact. "Yes," Tae-young managed to say. His mouth felt dry. "Can I help you with something?" "I am Empress Shivara of the Draconus Imperium." She said this casually, like someone might say they worked in accounting. "This is my daughter Hana." The small dragon made a tiny chirping sound and tried to hide further behind her mother's leg. Tae-young's mind raced. An empress. The ruler of the Dragon Empire was standing in a maintenance tunnel with him. He should probably bow or kneel or something, but the tunnel was too cramped and he was still holding his electrical scanner. "I need your help," Shivara said. Those 4 words seemed to cost her greatly. Her jaw was tight, and her golden eyes burned with something that looked like anger and desperation mixed together. "My help?" Tae-young looked down at his dirty work uniform. "I think you might have the wrong person. I just fix things. Pipes and wires and stuff like that. I have the correct person." Shivara reached down and gently pushed Hana forward. "My daughter cannot roar." Tae-young looked at the small dragon. Hana stared at the floor, her wings drooping. She looked miserable. "I do not understand," Tae-young said carefully. "Dragons roar naturally, right? It is part of who you are." "Yes." Shivara's voice was sharp. "Every dragon produces their first true roar before their ascension ceremony. It is how we claim our place in society. It is our identity, our power, our birthright. Hana's ceremony is in 30 solar cycles. She can only make small sounds like a bird." The small dragon made a sad whistling noise as if to prove her mother's point. Tae-young set down his scanner and knelt to be at eye level with Hana. "Can I hear you try?" he asked gently. Hana looked up at her mother. Shivara nodded. The small dragon took a deep breath, her chest expanding. Her mouth opened wide, showing rows of tiny sharp teeth. She pushed, her whole body straining with effort. What came out was a sound like a squeaky door hinge. It was quiet and small and nothing like the roars Tae-young had heard in videos of dragon ceremonies. Those roars shook mountains. This barely stirred the air. Hana's eyes filled with tears. Actual tears ran down her scaled face. She turned and pressed against her mother's leg again. "I have taken her to the finest vocal masters in the Empire," Shivara said quietly. "I have consulted genetic engineers who examined every cell in her body. I have brought her to priests who performed ancient rituals. Nothing works. She is physically perfect. The problem is here." She tapped her own head. "In her mind. She is afraid." "Afraid of what?" Tae-young asked. "Of failing. Of disappointing me. Of being the first dragon in 10,000 years who cannot roar." Shivara's voice softened when she looked at her daughter. "She has created a block in her own mind, and I do not know how to break it." Tae-young was starting to understand, but he still did not understand why she came to him. "What can I do?" I am not a doctor or a teacher. I fix broken things on the station. I have watched you, Shivara said. 3 months ago, you taught songs to the younglings in the multi-species education program. You made them laugh. You made learning feel safe. And 2 weeks ago, I saw you help a Vrelian worker who had a speech problem. You spent your lunch breaks with him for a week, teaching him breathing exercises. Now he speaks clearly. Tae-young remembered both of those things. He had not realized anyone important was watching. He had just been trying to help. Dragons are expected to roar instinctively, Shivara continued. We do not teach it because teaching it implies weakness. But Hana needs to be taught. She needs someone who has patience, someone who will not judge her, someone who understands that sometimes strength must be built slowly. Why not do this yourself? Tae-young asked carefully. You are her mother. Because I am Empress first. The words sounded bitter in Shivara's mouth. When I look at her, I see my heir, my successor, the future of my bloodline. I have tried to help her, but I bring the weight of expectation with me. She needs someone who sees her as just a child who needs help. Tae-young looked at Hana again. She was peeking at him from behind her mother's leg. Her golden eyes were full of hope and fear. She looked like every scared kid he had ever tried to help. If word spreads that I asked a human for help with something this sacred, Shivara said, her voice dropping to almost a whisper, it could destroy my political standing. Other houses would challenge my rule. Some species already think dragons are arrogant relics of the past. This would give them ammunition. I am trusting you with something that could topple an empire. The weight of those words settled on Tae-young's shoulders like a physical thing. He thought about saying no. He thought about all the ways this could go wrong. He was just a maintenance worker. He had no special training. He could fail, and this child would suffer for it. But then Hana made another small chirping sound, and Tae-young made his decision. Okay, he said. I will try to help, but I cannot promise anything. I have never worked with a dragon before. You have 30 days, Shivara said. Relief flickered across her face for just a moment. Where do we begin? Tae-young thought about it. I know a place. An old cargo bay that nobody uses anymore. It is quiet and private. We can set up there. But first I need to ask Hana something. He looked at the small dragon directly. Do you want to learn to roar? Hana nodded quickly, her wings fluttering. Even if it is hard? Even if it takes time? Another nod. Good. Tae-young smiled at her. Then we will figure this out together. No pressure. No expectations. Just practice. For the first time, Hana smiled back. It was a small smile, but it was there. Shivara looked at them both, and something in her stern expression softened. When do we start? Tomorrow, Tae-young said. Meet me at Cargo Bay 7 Theta at the start of night cycle. And Empress? Try to come as a mother, not a ruler. Shivara nodded slowly. I will try. She took Hana's hand, and they both shimmered and disappeared, leaving Tae-young alone in the maintenance tunnel with his thoughts and his scattered tools. He picked up his scanner and went back to work on the wiring. But his mind was already racing ahead, thinking about breathing exercises and vocal warm-ups and how to teach a dragon to roar. He had 30 days to do the impossible. He started humming his grandmother's song again, a little louder this time. Tae-young spent the next day preparing Cargo Bay 7 Theta. The space was huge and empty with high ceilings and metal walls. It echoed when he walked across it. Not exactly welcoming for a nervous child, he brought things from his quarters. A small bamboo plant in a ceramic pot, paper lanterns that he hung from the ceiling supports, wind chimes that tinkled softly when the air recyclers kicked on. He spread out a rug he bought from a Terran merchant. The cargo bay still looked industrial, but now it had touches of warmth. When Shivara and Hana arrived that evening, the little dragon's eyes went wide. She walked slowly to the wind chimes and touched them with one claw. They sang their gentle song. It is pretty, Hana said. Her voice was small and soft. I thought you might like it, Tae-young said. This is our space now. Just for us. Nobody will bother us here. Shivara looked around the cargo bay with an unreadable expression. You did this in one day? It is not much, Tae-young said. But I wanted Hana to feel comfortable. The Empress nodded slowly. She sat down on the floor, which looked strange for someone so regal. Her robes pooled around her like water. Okay, Hana, Tae-young said, sitting cross-legged on the rug. We are going to start with something simple. Breathing. I know how to breathe, Hana said, confused. You know how to breathe to stay alive, Tae-young agreed. But do you know how to breathe for power? Let me show you. He placed one hand on his stomach. When you breathe, where does the air go? Hana thought about it. My lungs? Yes, but watch. Tae-young took a deep breath. His chest expanded, but more importantly, his belly pushed out. See, the air goes down low. This is where your power lives. Not in your throat. Not in your chest, here. He patted his stomach. He spent the next hour teaching Hana to breathe deeply. He told her stories about Korean pansori singers who trained for years to develop their voices. They would practice breathing while climbing mountains, singing while carrying heavy loads. Their power came from deep inside. Dragons are born with power, Shivara said, watching them. We do not need to train like this. Maybe that is the problem, Tae-young said gently. Hana knows she is supposed to be powerful, but she does not know how to find that power inside herself. We need to build it step by step. Shivara looked like she wanted to argue, but she stayed quiet. By the end of the first session, Hana could take deep breaths that filled her whole body. It was progress, even if it was small. The sessions continued every evening. Tae-young taught Hana to hum, then to make sustained sounds. He never mentioned roaring. He just focused on getting her comfortable making noise. On the 5th day, everything fell apart. Today we try a roar, Shivara announced when they arrived. She has been practicing breathing for enough time. Tae-young wanted to say it was too soon, but Hana was already stepping into the middle of the cargo bay. She looked terrified. Whenever you are ready, Tae-young said encouragingly. Hana took a deep breath using the technique he taught her. Her small body filled with air. She opened her mouth. She pushed. The sound that came out was a wheeze like air escaping from a balloon. It was worse than her first attempt. Hana tried again, straining harder. Nothing. Just another wheeze. She tried a third time, and this time no sound came out at all. Hana's legs gave out. She collapsed on the floor, her wings spreading around her. She started to cry, deep sobs that shook her whole body. I cannot do it, she wailed. I am broken. I'm a disgrace to all dragons. I should not exist. Tae-young moved to comfort her, but Shivara was faster. The Empress dropped to her knees and pulled her daughter into her arms. You are not a disgrace, Shivara said fiercely. You are my daughter. You are brilliant and kind and broken. Hana sobbed into her mother's robes. Every dragon can roar. Even hatchlings fresh from the egg can make sounds. But not me. I am wrong. Something is wrong with me. Tae-young sat down next to them. His heart ached watching this small creature suffer. He waited until Hana's sobs quieted a little. Can I tell you a story? He asked softly. Hana nodded against her mother's shoulder. When I was younger, I wanted to be an engineer. A real one, who designs starships and builds amazing things. I took the exams to get into the academy. I failed. So I studied harder and took them again. I failed again. I took those exams 3 times and I failed every single time. He picked up a piece of lint from the floor, just to have something to do with his hands. My family was so disappointed. My father stopped talking to me. My brother said I was embarrassing the family. I felt like I was broken too. Like everyone else could do these things easily, but something was wrong with my brain. What did you do? Hana asked, her voice muffled. I gave up on being a designer engineer. I became a maintenance engineer instead. I fix things instead of building new things. And you know what? My family still thinks I'm a failure. I am 32 years old and I fix toilets and wiring in a space station. I am the lowest ranked human on the Galactic Council station. That is sad, Hana said. Maybe, Tae-young said, but I found something else. I found that I am good at helping people. I am good at teaching. I am good at being patient. These are not skills that get you respect or money or fame, but they are my skills. I stopped trying to be what everyone expected and started being what I actually am. He looked at Hana directly. You are trying to roar like other dragons because that is what is expected. But what if your roar needs to be different? What if trying to force it is what is blocking you? All roars are the same, Shivara said. They are expressions of power and dominance, and are they? Tae-young challenged gently. I have heard human battle cries. I have heard mothers scream to protect their children. I have heard people shout in defiance of injustice. They are all roars, but they come from different places in the heart. Maybe Hana cannot roar for dominance because that is not who she is. Shivara opened her mouth to argue, then slowly closed it. She looked at her daughter with new understanding. "Who are you, Hana?" Tae-young asked. "Not who you are supposed to be." "Who are you, actually?" Hana thought about this for a long time. "I like helping things," she said finally. "I like taking care of the garden creatures in the palace. I like when things are safe and happy." "So you are a protector," Tae-young said. "Not a conqueror." "There is strength in protection. There is power in keeping things safe." He stood up and walked to the wind chimes. "For the next week, we are not going to practice roaring at all. We are going to practice finding what makes you feel strong, what makes you feel like yourself." Over the following days, Tae-young changed his approach completely. He had Hana talk about things she loved. He had her practice making sounds that expressed joy, not dominance. He taught her that sound was just vibration, and she got to choose what emotion to pour into it. He brought his friend Daeho to visit. Daeho was an opera singer, and when he sang, the entire cargo bay vibrated with his voice. Hana was amazed. "How do you do that?" she asked. "I fill the sound with everything I am feeling," Daeho explained. "When I sing about love, I think about people I love. When I sing about anger, I think about injustice. The emotion makes the sound powerful." "What if I filled a roar with protection?" Hana asked quietly. "With wanting to keep my mother safe?" "Then it would be the most powerful roar you could make," Daeho said. "Because it would be truly yours." On the 20th day, something unexpected happened. Tae-young was demonstrating a breathing exercise when he pretended to lose his balance. He stumbled toward a stack of crates, making it look dangerous. Hana reacted instantly. Her body moved before her mind could doubt. She opened her mouth and sound came out. It was not a full roar, but it was close. It was a sharp, fierce sound that said, "Stop, danger." The sound was loud enough to rattle the wind chimes. Tae-young caught himself and turned to stare at Hana. The little dragon looked shocked at herself. "I did it," she whispered. "I made a real sound." Shivara had tears streaming down her face. She was trying to hide them, but they were there. "You did," she said, her voice breaking. "You truly did," Tae-young grinned. "That was amazing, Hana. That was real power." "But it was not a roar," Hana said, her excitement fading. "Not a full roar." "It was a roar of protection," Tae-young said. "And with 10 days left, we can build on it. We can make it bigger. We can make it truly yours." For the first time in weeks, Hana looked hopeful. Not pressured, not afraid, just hopeful. But outside the cargo bay, trouble was brewing. Ambassador Jiwon of the Tyrellian Combine had been watching the Empress's movements. They noticed her frequent disappearances. They noticed the changes in her behavior. And they were starting to ask questions that Tae-young and Shivara could not answer without revealing their secret. Ambassador Jiwon found Empress Shivara in one of the station's diplomatic gardens. The Empress was alone, watching water flow through a decorative fountain. She looked tired, which was unusual for someone of her status. "We need to speak," Jiwon said without greeting. The Tyrellian was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. They moved with calculated precision. "About what?" Shivara did not turn to look at them. "About where you disappear to every evening. About why the mighty Dragon Empress suddenly has no time for council duties. About the rumors." Now Shivara turned. Her golden eyes were cold. "What rumors?" "That you are unwell. That you are losing your authority. That perhaps the dragons need new leadership." Jiwon smiled, showing too many teeth. "I could help stop these rumors. For a price. Name it. Support the Tyrellian expansion proposal. Give us access to the 3 disputed systems near the outer rim. Vote with us in the next council session." Shivara understood immediately. Those 3 systems were rich in resources. If the Tyrellians controlled them, they would become a major power. And the Empress had been the strongest voice against their expansion. "And if I refuse, then I will discover your secret," Jiwon said smoothly. "And I will share it with the entire council. Whatever you are hiding, it is clearly important enough to risk your political standing." "I wonder what it could be." Shivara wanted to strike them down right there. Her hands clenched into fists. But she was Empress. She could not act on anger. "I will consider your offer," she said coldly. "You have 3 days," Jiwon said. Then they walked away, leaving Shivara alone with her thoughts and her impossible choice. That evening, the Empress arrived at the cargo bay looking like she had aged 100 years. Tae-young noticed immediately. "What happened?" he asked. Shivara explained about Jiwon, about the blackmail, about the choice between her pride and her daughter's future. As she spoke, Hana's face fell. "This is my fault," Hana said quietly. "If I could just roar like a normal dragon, none of this would be happening." "You should give them what they want, Mother. Your empire is more important than me." "No." The word came from Shivara like a crack of thunder. "Nothing is more important than you, nothing." She looked at Tae-young. "I will refuse, Ji-won. If they expose us, they expose us. I will not betray my principles to hide my shame. And I am learning that seeking help is not shameful. There is no shame in being a mother," Tae-young agreed. "Ji-won is betting that you care more about power than about Hana. Prove them wrong." Over the next days, Tae-young intensified Hana's training. They had so little time left. He tried a new exercise, setting up mirrors around the cargo bay. Mirrors were rare in dragon culture. Dragons did not spend much time looking at themselves. "I want you to watch yourself," Tae-young told Hana. "I want you to see what I see." Hana looked at her reflection nervously. She saw a small dragon with wings too big for her body. She saw someone who looked weak and uncertain. "What do you see?" Tae-young asked. "Someone who does not look like an empress's daughter," Hana said sadly. "Look again." "Really look." Hana stared at herself. Tae-young came to stand beside her. "I see a young dragon who has worked harder than anyone I know," he said. "I see someone who gets up every day even though she is scared. I see someone who loves her mother enough to face her biggest fear. I see someone brave." Hana's eyes filled with tears. "I do not feel brave." "Bravery is not about not being scared," Tae-young said. "It is about being scared and doing the thing anyway. You have been brave every single day." He had her practice making sounds while watching herself in the mirror. Slowly, Hana started to see herself differently. Not as a failure, but as someone trying, someone growing. "Try making a sound of protection," Tae-young said. "Think about protecting someone you love." Hana thought about her mother. She thought about Tae-young, who had been so kind to her. She thought about all the small creatures she cared for in the palace gardens. She opened her mouth and pushed sound from deep in her belly, just like Tae-young taught her. The roar that came out was louder than before. It rattled the mirrors. It made the wind chimes sing wildly. It was not as big as an adult dragon's roar, but it was real. It was powerful. It was hers. Tae-young whooped with joy. Shivara pressed her hands to her mouth, trying not to cry again. Hana stared at herself in the mirror, shocked at what she had done. "I roared," she said in wonder. "I actually roared." "You did more than roar," Tae-young said. "You found your voice." They practiced more over the next few days. Each time Hana's roar grew stronger. It was different from traditional dragon roars. It did not speak of conquest or dominance. It spoke of fierce protection, of determined love, of a gentleness that would defend what it cherished. "It is not right," Shivara said one evening, though she did not sound convinced. "Dragon roars should inspire fear." "Why?" Tae-young asked. "Who made that rule?" 10,000 years of tradition. Maybe it is time for a new tradition. Maybe there is more than one way to be a dragon. Shivara looked at her daughter, who was practicing her breathing exercises with complete focus. "Maybe," she said softly. On the third day after Ji-won's ultimatum, the Tyrellian ambassador made good on their threat. They called an emergency council session and presented evidence of Shivara's secret meetings. They had tracking data showing her regular visits to an abandoned cargo bay. They had testimonies from station workers who saw her with a human maintenance engineer. "The Empress is hiding something," Ji-won announced to the assembled council. "She is meeting secretly with a human. What could be so important that she risks her position like this? What weakness is she trying to hide?" The council chamber erupted in speculation. Species from across the galaxy murmured to each other. The dragon delegation looked mortified. Tae-young watched from the human section, his heart sinking. This was it. The secret was out. Ji-won turned to Shivara. "Tell us, Empress. What are you hiding? What is this human helping you with?" Shivara stood slowly. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. The room went silent. "I will tell you," she said clearly. "But first I want to ask a question. How many of you have children?" Many hands and appendages raised across the chamber. "How many of you would do anything to help your child succeed? To see them happy and healthy and whole?" The hands stayed raised. Some species nodded. "I sought help from Tae-young," Shivara said, gesturing to where he sat. "Because my daughter needed something I could not give her. She needed someone who could teach without judgment." someone who could help her find her own strength. I put aside my pride as Empress because I am a mother first. What exactly is wrong with your daughter? Jiwan pressed. What weakness are you hiding? Before Shivara could answer, a small voice spoke up. I am the weakness. Hana walked into the council chamber. She was not supposed to be there. Hatchlings did not attend council sessions, but she walked straight to the center of the floor, her head held high. My name is Hana, she said, her voice shaking but clear. I could not roar. Every dragon can roar, but I could not. I tried and tried, but fear blocked me. My mother sought help because she loves me. She learned from a human because she was wise enough to know that wisdom comes from unexpected places. A dragon who cannot roar, Jiwan said mockingly. How unfortunate. Surely this proves the Dragon Empire is weakening. Perhaps the council needs new leadership. Leadership that is not defective. The word defective hung in the air like poison. Tae-young stood up from his seat. He was not supposed to speak. Humans had no standing in council debates. But he spoke anyway. I am Tae-young, he said. I am a maintenance worker. I fix broken things. But Hana was never broken. She just needed to find her own way. She needed to learn that being different is not being defective. It is being unique. Sit down, human, Jiwan snapped. You have no voice here. Maybe he should, said a Vrelian delegate, standing up. This human helped my colleague overcome a speech impediment when our own doctors failed. Perhaps we should listen to him. Other voices joined in. Species across the chamber started sharing stories of times humans had helped them with unexpected solutions. The narrative was shifting and Jiwan could feel control slipping away. Enough, Jiwan said. Let the dragon prove she can roar. If she can, I will withdraw my challenge. If she cannot, the Empress has lied to this council about solving her problem. All eyes turned to Hana. The small dragon looked terrified. This was not how her ascension ceremony was supposed to happen. Not in front of the entire galaxy, not under pressure and scrutiny. Tae-young caught her eye from across the chamber. He smiled at her and pressed his hand to his stomach. The signal for deep breathing, for finding power from within. Hana understood. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She thought about her mother, who loved her enough to risk everything. She thought about Tae-young, who saw her as worthy when she could not see it herself. She thought about all the small creatures she protected in the gardens, all the things she loved and would defend. She opened her eyes and opened her mouth and she roared. The sound that came from Hana's small body was unlike any roar the council had ever heard. It was not the deep, earth-shaking bellow of conquest that traditional dragons produced. It was something else entirely. It was a roar that said, I am here, I matter, and I will protect what I love. The sound filled the council chamber like a wave. It resonated in the bones of every being present. It was not loud in the way that hurt ears. It was loud in the way that touched hearts. Beings from species that never felt emotion found their eyes watering. Hardened warriors felt their throats tighten. The roar lasted for 10 seconds. When it ended, the chamber was completely silent. Hana stood in the center of the floor, breathing hard, her wings spread wide. She looked shocked at what she had done. Then she looked up at her mother. Shivara had tears streaming down her face openly now, not caring who saw. She was across the chamber floor in 3 strides, pulling her daughter into her arms. That was perfect, the Empress whispered. That was absolutely perfect. The silence in the chamber broke. A Vrelian delegate started clapping. Then another species joined in. Then another. Within seconds, the entire council was applauding. Even some of the dragon delegation, though they looked confused about what they had just witnessed. Jiwan stood frozen, their forearms hanging uselessly at their sides. This was not how this was supposed to go. They were supposed to humiliate the Empress, not witness a triumph. Ambassador Kyung-soo, the human representative, stood up. I move that we acknowledge what we just witnessed. A young being found her voice with help from another species. This is what the Galactic Council is supposed to be about. Cooperation, learning from each other, growing together. Seconded, said the Vrelian delegate immediately. More voices joined in support. The mood in the chamber had completely shifted. What had been a trial had become a celebration. But Jiwan was not finished. That roar was not traditional, they said loudly, cutting through the applause. It does not sound like a proper dragon roar. How do we know it is legitimate? How do we know this is not some trick? An elderly dragon from Shivara's own delegation stood up slowly. Elder Taemin was ancient, one of the oldest dragons still living. When he spoke, everyone listened. I am 7,000 years old, Taman said in a raspy voice. I have heard every kind of dragon roar that exists. Roars of war, roars of triumph, roars of grief. But this is the first time I have heard a roar of pure protection. It is different, yes, but it is no less real. Perhaps it is more real because it comes from truth rather than tradition. He looked at Hana directly. Young one, your roar touched something in me I thought was long dead. You reminded me why we roar in the first place, not to prove dominance, to express what is in our hearts. Other dragons in the delegation began nodding. Some looked uncomfortable, like their entire worldview was shifting, but they could not deny what they had felt. Jiwan tried one more time. The Empress still broke protocol. She sought outside help for a sacred dragon ritual. She involved a human in matters that should remain internal. There must be consequences. What consequences? Asked Ambassador Kyung-soo. She helped her daughter. She found a solution when traditional methods failed. She showed wisdom and humility. If those are crimes, then our council has lost its way. The Vrelian delegate stood again. I wish to share something. 20 years ago, my son was born without the ability to navigate magnetic fields. For my species, this is devastating. We rely on magnetic sense for everything.
I sought help from a human scientist.
She taught my son to use technology to compensate. He is now a successful navigator. I never told anyone because I was ashamed. But Empress Shivara's courage makes me realize there is no shame in seeking help. Another delegate stood. My species had a plague we could not cure. Human doctors found the solution by looking at the problem differently. We all owe debts to each other. That is what civilization means. One by one, species across the chamber began sharing stories. Times when humans had helped them. Times when they had learned from unexpected sources. Times when admitting weakness led to strength. Jiwan's face darkened with anger. This was spiraling completely out of control. They played their final card. Very touching, they said coldly. But I call for a formal vote. Should Empress Shivara retain her position after breaking sacred traditions? All in favor of removing her from power indicate now. The chamber went quiet again. This was the moment. A formal vote called by an ambassador had to be counted. Jiwan's hand went up. A few of their allies raised their appendages. Taeyang counted 7 votes for removal, all opposed. The council moderator called. A wave of hands, tentacles, wings, and various limbs rose into the air. Dozens of species voting to keep Shivara as Empress. Even some dragons voted in her favor, though many abstained, clearly conflicted. The moderator counted quickly. The motion fails. Empress Shivara retains her position with strong support from the council. Shivara bowed her head in acknowledgement. Thank you. I will not forget this support. But she was not done. She looked at Jiwan directly. You tried to use my love for my daughter as a weapon. You saw vulnerability and thought it was weakness. You were wrong. Being open about our struggles, being willing to learn from anyone who can help, being able to put aside pride for what matters most. These are not weaknesses. These are the greatest strengths any leader can have. She addressed the entire council now. I propose we create an initiative, an interspecies learning exchange, where any species can seek help from any other species without shame, where we share knowledge freely, where we acknowledge that each species has unique wisdom to offer. I support this, said the Vrelian delegate immediately. As do we, said Ambassador Kyung-soo. More voices of support rang out. Jiwan looked around in disbelief. Their attempt to destroy the Empress had instead led to greater cooperation between species. The council moderator called for order. We will table the detailed proposal for the next session. But the principal has clear support. This session is adjourned. As the chamber began to empty, various delegates approached Shivara to offer congratulations and support. Some wanted to speak with Taeyang, curious about his teaching methods. The human section, usually ignored, suddenly had visitors. Hana stayed close to her mother, overwhelmed by all the attention. Elder Taemin approached them both. Young Hana, he said gently, your roar has started something. I believe you have begun a change in our culture. Dragons have been roaring the same way for 10,000 years. Perhaps it is time we learned there are other ways to express our power. I was just trying to be myself, Hana said quietly. Exactly, Taemin smiled. That is the best thing any of us can do. He turned to Shivara. I will speak with the dragon houses. Some will resist these changes, but many of the younger dragons have been struggling with our rigid traditions. Your daughter may have given them permission to find their own voices too. After he left, Tae-young finally made his way through the crowd to reach them. Hana immediately ran to him and hugged his leg. I did it, she said, her voice muffled against his uniform. I was so scared, but I did it. You were amazing, Tae-young said, kneeling down to hug her properly. I am so proud of you. Shivara placed a hand on his shoulder. Thank you. Thank you for seeing what I could not see, for teaching what I could not teach, for giving my daughter back to me. I just helped her find what was already there, Tae-young said. Hana did all the hard work. Still, Shivara said, you have my eternal gratitude, and the gratitude of the entire Dragon Empire, even if they do not know it yet. Ji-won passed by them on the way out of the chamber. They looked at Tae-young with undisguised hatred. You have made a powerful enemy today, human. I made a friend who needed help, Tae-young replied calmly. That matters more than enemies. Ji-won left in a storm of anger. Ambassador Kyung-soo approached, grinning widely. You know what you have done? You just raised the standing of every human in the galaxy. People are already talking about it. The human who taught a dragon to roar. This is going to change things for us. Tae-young felt uncomfortable with that. I was just helping a kid. And that is exactly why it matters, Kyung-soo said. You did not do it for glory or politics. You did it because it was right. That is what humanity does best. As they walked out of the council chamber together, Hana between them holding both their hands, Tae-young thought about his grandmother. She had taught him that old song about the tiger and the rabbit. In the song, the rabbit did not defeat the tiger through strength. The rabbit won through cleverness and compassion. Maybe that was humanity's role in the galaxy. Not to be the strongest or the most advanced, but to be the ones who saw potential in others and helped them grow. What happens now? Hana asked. Now, Shivara said, we go home and plan your proper ascension ceremony. One that celebrates who you actually are, not who tradition says you should be. Can Tae-young come? Hana asked hopefully. Shivara laughed. I think that can be arranged. After all, he is probably the only being in the galaxy brave enough to tell the Dragon Empress when she is wrong. Tae-young smiled. I'm just a maintenance worker. No, Shivara said seriously. You are a teacher. Perhaps one of the best teachers in the galaxy. And I think many others are going to realize that soon. She was right. In the following days, requests began pouring in from across the galaxy. Species who had members struggling with various challenges. Parents who wanted help with their children. Leaders who wanted to learn Tae-young's methods. The quiet maintenance worker who had just wanted to help one scared child had accidentally started a revolution. But that was a story for another day. For now, they walked together through the station corridors. A Dragon Empress, her daughter, and a human who had taught them both something valuable about strength, vulnerability, and the courage it takes to ask for help. 6 months passed like water flowing through a stream. The Galactic Council Station had changed in ways both visible and invisible. The cargo bay that Tae-young had converted for Hana's training was now officially called the Teaching Garden. It had been expanded and improved, with spaces for students from different species to learn. Tae-young stood in the Teaching Garden now, watching a group of younglings from 5 different species practice breathing exercises together. A small, Vrelian child stood next to a Terrellian youth, next to a human girl, next to another young dragon. They were all doing the same exercise, breathing from their cores, finding their voices. His official title was now Director of Interspecies Cultural Exchange, though he still wore his maintenance uniform most days. It felt more comfortable than the formal robes they had offered him. He was still the same person after all, just with more responsibilities. The little Terrellian is struggling, said a voice behind him. Hana had grown in the past 6 months. She was larger now, more confident. Her wings had filled out. But most importantly, her eyes no longer held fear. They held purpose. She will find her way, Tae-young said, just like you did. Hana smiled. She came to the teaching garden twice a week to help with the younger students. She had become a teaching assistant of sorts, though she was still young herself. But she understood what it felt like to struggle, and that made her patient. My ascension ceremony is next week, Hana said. Are you ready? I should ask you that question, Tae-young replied. I am ready. Hana said confidently. I know who I am now. I know what my roar means. The ceremony had been delayed by 6 months so they could plan something new. Something that honored Hana's unique voice rather than forcing her to conform. Dragons from across the empire would attend. So would representatives from other species, including many humans. It would be the first ascension ceremony open to non-dragons. Some traditional dragons had protested, of course, but Elder Taemin had spoken in favor of the changes, and his word carried weight. More importantly, young dragons across the empire had started coming forward with their own struggles. Some could not roar either. Others had different challenges. Hana's honesty had given them permission to seek help. A reform movement was growing in dragon culture. Not everyone supported it, but change had begun. How many applications did we receive this week? Tae-young asked. Hana pulled out a data tablet. 47 requests for help from various species, 15 requests for you to visit other worlds to teach, and 3 offers of marriage. Tae-young choked on his own spit. What? 2 from dragon houses who want to ally with you. 1 from a Vrelian family who thinks you are very wise. Hana grinned. I told them you were not interested. Thank you, Tae-young said, still coughing. Fame was uncomfortable. He preferred the quiet work of actually teaching. Ambassador Kyung-soo had been right. Tae-young's work with Hana had changed how the galaxy saw humans. Earth's status in the council had improved dramatically. Humans were no longer seen as just maintenance workers and low-level laborers. They were recognized for their unique approach to problems, their patience, their ability to teach. More humans were being hired for important positions. The human quarter on the station had expanded, and most importantly, other species were actively seeking human knowledge and perspectives. Tae-young, said a small voice. The little Tyrellian child had approached. I cannot make the sound right. It feels stuck. Tae-young knelt down to the child's level. That is okay. Stuck is where we start. Let me show you something. He spent the next 20 minutes working with the child, using the same patient techniques he had used with Hana. Hana watched, remembering when she had been the one struggling. Later that day, Tae-young received an unexpected visitor. Ambassador Ji-won arrived at the teaching garden alone, without their usual entourage. They looked uncomfortable. I need to speak with you, Ji-won said stiffly. Tae-young gestured to his small office area. They sat down across from each other. Ji-won was silent for a long moment. My child is failing the Tyrellian combat trials, they finally said. The words seemed to cause them physical pain. They are gentle. They do not want to fight. In my culture, this is unacceptable. Warriors who cannot fight are exiled. Tae-young understood immediately. And you want help. I do not want to want help, Ji-won said bitterly. Especially not from you. I tried to destroy you 6 months ago. I failed. You succeeded. You made me look foolish in front of the entire council. I was not trying to make you look foolish, Tae-young said gently. I was trying to help a child. I know, Ji-won said. That is what makes this so difficult. You did not act from ambition or politics, you acted from kindness. And now I need that kindness for my own child, even though I do not deserve it. Tae-young thought about it. He could refuse. Ji-won had tried to hurt people he cared about, but he looked at the ambassador and saw what he always saw when people came to him. Not an enemy. Just a parent who loved their child and did not know how to help. Tell me about your child, Tae-young said. Relief flooded Ji-won's face. They spent the next hour talking about their child, about Tyrellian culture, about the impossible expectations placed on young warriors. By the end, they had a plan. Tae-young could not promise success, but he could promise to try. Why are you helping me? Ji-won asked as they stood to leave. After what I did? Because your child deserves help, Tae-young said simply. And because holding grudges takes too much energy, I would rather use that energy to teach. Ji-won nodded slowly. You are a strange being, Tae-young. But I am beginning to understand why the galaxy respects you. After they left, Hana emerged from where she had been listening. "That was very kind of you." "It was the right thing to do," Tae-young said. "Mother says you are too kind sometimes, that people will take advantage of you." Tae-young smiled. "Maybe, but I would rather be too kind than not kind enough." The day of Hana's ascension ceremony arrived with perfect weather. The ceremony was held not in a traditional dragon temple, but in a neutral location on the station. A huge amphitheater had been prepared, with seating for thousands. Tae-young sat in a place of honor next to Empress Shivara. He wore formal robes for the occasion, though he still felt awkward in them. Daeho sat on his other side, having flown in specifically for the ceremony. Ambassador Kyung-soo was there. So was Elder Tae-min. So were delegates from dozens of species. The ceremony began with traditional elements. Dragon priests performed ancient rituals. Incense burned. But then came the new additions. Hana stepped forward and spoke about her journey. She talked about her fear, about feeling broken, about finding help from an unexpected source. She talked about learning that there were many kinds of strength. Then she introduced Tae-young and asked him to say a few words. Tae-young had not prepared a speech. He stood up and spoke from his heart. "Hana taught me something important. She taught me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you need help. She taught me that there are many ways to be strong, and she taught me that the next generation can improve on what came before, if we let them." He looked at all the young dragons in the audience. "You do not have to roar the way your parents roared. You do not have to be exactly like those who came before. You just have to be truly yourselves. That is enough. That is more than enough." Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. Hana moved to the center of the amphitheater. She stood alone, wings spread facing the assembled witnesses. She took a deep breath, pulling air from her core just like Tae-young had taught her. She thought about everything she loved. Her mother, her friends, her teacher, the small creatures in the palace gardens, the students she now helped teach, all the beings she wanted to protect and nurture. Hana opened her mouth and roared. The sound was magnificent. It was powerful and pure and completely unique. It was a roar that said, "I am here, I am myself, and I am enough." It was a roar of protection and love and fierce determination. It was not a traditional dragon roar, but it was undeniably real. The amphitheater shook with it. Beings from across the galaxy felt it in their bones. When the roar ended, there was a moment of perfect silence. Then the entire amphitheater erupted in applause and cheers. Dragons roared their approval in their traditional way, and the sound mixed with Hana's unique roar created something beautiful. Empress Shivara stood and placed a ceremonial crown on her daughter's head. "I recognize Hana as a full member of Dragon Society. She has found her voice. She has claimed her place. She has honored our traditions while creating something new." The ceremony continued with celebrations and feasting, but Tae-young slipped away after a while, feeling overwhelmed by all the attention. He found himself back at the teaching garden, sitting on the floor next to his bamboo plant. Hana found him there an hour later. She still wore her ceremonial crown, but she sat down next to him like she had done so many times before. "You left your own party," Tae-young said. "I needed a break," Hana said. "Too many people wanted to talk to me. They kept asking about my roar, about how I learned, about whether I could teach them." "What did you tell them?" "I told them to come here, to the teaching garden. I told them we could help." Hana leaned against him. "Is it always going to be like this now? People always wanting things from us?" "Probably," Tae-young said. "But we do not have to help everyone. We just help who we can, when we can." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Hana said, "Thank you. For everything. You changed my life." "You changed your own life," Tae-young corrected. "I just helped you see what was already there." "Still," Hana said, "thank you." Later that evening, Tae-young returned to his small quarters. They had offered him larger accommodations, but he had refused. He liked his small space. It felt like home. He sat at his desk and looked at the messages on his data pad. Requests for help from across the galaxy. Invitations to teach on other worlds. Questions about his methods. It was overwhelming. But then he saw a message from his father. They had not spoken in years. The message was short. "I saw the ceremony broadcast. I was wrong about you. You have done something important. I am proud of you. Tae-young read it 3 times. He thought about responding, but he was not ready yet. Maybe someday. Healing took time, just like learning to roar. He looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, young beings were struggling with their own challenges. Some of them would find their way to the teaching garden. Some of them Tae-young would help. Others he would pass on to the students he was training. The work would never be finished. There would always be someone who needed help finding their voice. But that was okay. Tae-young had found his purpose. He was no longer just a maintenance worker fixing broken pipes. He was a teacher helping beings fix themselves, or rather, helping them realize they were never broken in the first place. He picked up his old datapad and recorded a new message for the public teaching archive. Strength comes in many forms. Your way does not have to be someone else's way. Find what makes you yourself and let that be enough. You are worthy exactly as you are. It was a simple message, but Tae-young had learned that simple messages were often the most powerful. He thought about his grandmother's song about the rabbit and the tiger. The rabbit had won not through force, but through cleverness and compassion. Maybe that was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not weapons or technology, but the ability to see potential in others and the patience to help them grow. Tae-young smiled to himself. Tomorrow he would go back to the teaching garden. Tomorrow there would be more students, more challenges, more small victories. Tomorrow he would do what he did best, help someone find their voice. But tonight he allowed himself to rest. He had taught a dragon Empress about vulnerability. He had helped a young dragon find her roar. He had changed the conversation about strength across the entire galaxy. Not bad for a maintenance worker from Earth. He closed his eyes and hummed his grandmother's song one more time. The melody drifted out his window and into the vast darkness of space, where countless stars shone with their own unique light. Just like Hana's roar, just like every being who had the courage to be themselves. Different but no less beautiful. Unique but no less worthy. And in the teaching garden, the wind chimes sang softly in the recycled air, waiting for tomorrow's students to arrive.